My friend Jessica is going to be joining soon. And today we're going to be talking about fire warriors and how to alchemize and transmute all of our lower emotions into power. Here she comes.
Hello.
God, stop it. Look at. We did not color coordinate. We did not have. Jessica, I cannot. This is so we don't have discussions about what we're wearing, and we've both showed up with red and black multiple times. And today I felt like wearing camo, because I'm getting into the military, getting into the commander energy. And your shirt matches the blanket behind me. This is just ridiculous. You got green on today. We're in the energy.
That's funny.
We're summoning the legions, and so we gotta form our spiritual troops here.
Yeah, that's so funny. I wore this shirt today because I knew I was going to have to pull up a sleeve for an allergy test, which did not go how I was expecting it to. I've been having hives. I'm just going to share this story real fast. I've been getting hives with eating dairy. Okay. And apparently it's not an allergy unless the hives happen within 30 minutes of eating or having, like the little thing, the little prick that they do. So I don't have an allergy, but I'm still supposed to avoid dairy now because I get hives later in the evening and they end up happening at night. And I'm almost like, I've heard somebody talk about like when your DNA upgrades, you can't eat certain foods anymore because your body's literally rejecting them. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's what this is because I technically don't have an allergy. So
Yeah, I've been through the hive thing. I'll tell my story about that too because it might help you. But real quick, Hi, John Michael. Hey, John Michael is one of my favorite content creators to follow. Do you know about him?
I think I've seen a couple of his videos. I think I even posted on a couple of his videos that I think he's a fire warrior.
Yeah, recently I commented on one of his videos, like the return of the ancient goddesses and the dragons. That's what people need to be prepared for. Jaw Magic Dragon said, I did a thing in my story. What did you do? What did you do in your story?
It's okay, John. Welcome. It's good to see you in here. I appreciate your content too.
Yeah, and John, you're correct. Like there is something major coming. It's just that there's been an infiltration in the spiritual community as far as what that is going to look like. And Jaw Magic Dragon did spell work, epic.
I will. Yes. I saw your dance. Is that what you're talking about? Your fire dance?
Yeah, Julie's doing some epic work lately. So, I want to use what Julie's saying, doing spell work, to segue and to kind of lead us into the discussion of alchemizing and transmuting the lower emotions. You did another thing this morning. All right. Did you do some binding spells? Did you do return to sender? Some reversal spells? So this matrix, this false matrix, this imprisonment matrix was formed over thousands of years through dark sorcery, dark magic, conditioning, programming, disconnecting us from source, putting us in binding, blinding spells, amnesia spells. It's just absolutely insane the amount of effort they have put forward to disconnect us from who we truly are and what we're capable of, and to disconnect us from our true source, which is the divine feminine, the mother. The goddess is the goddess is the original birther, the original creator, bringing things into the physical realm from the ethers into physicality. So there's a lot in the spiritual community, a lot of hype of like, it's going to be the Galactic Federation who shows up, or it's going to be extraterrestrials. And it's going to be the ancient beings that were here before the invasion, the ones that the invaders harmed. We've reincarnated, we're back, and we're gonna take our realm back. We're gonna make sure that the indigenous get their land back. We're gonna make sure that what was stolen is returned to the rightful owners, and that the ones who did the most harm are going to be consequenced. Part of why the darkness has spread truly like an infection is because it has created these systems where there is no consequence, or there's not a significant enough of a consequence to get them to stop their bullshit. They just keep doing their bullshit, and humans don't stand up because of fear, because they feel bad, too much empathy, too much compassion. And so they've overrun this place, truly like an infection. And so we're going to be cleaning up that parasitic infection. With the fire warriors are going to use the alchemy of fire to clear out this contamination. And a lot of the contamination is invisible, but you see it manifesting. So if we clear out what we can't see, that's going to impact what we can see. That's how the matrix works. It all starts in the etheric and then materializes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way you worded all of that. I do want to emphasize that divine feminine coming into her power is not dethroning divine masculine. And I don't mean this in a gender way. I mean this in an energetic way, because we all have masculine and feminine within us. But divine feminine has, because of just how it has played out in the 3D realm, been suppressed with the feminine gender, by the feminine, through the feminine gender, to hold that energy down so that it didn't ever become as strong as it should have been, could have been, would have been, had it not been so suppressed. But divine feminine needs divine masculine for the protection that the divine masculine was always meant to offer, instead of this charging forward warrior energy that divine masculine has embodied forever, for too long. We need that protection, that fatherly energy that divine masculine can provide, so that the divine feminine, through all of us, man and woman, can come out and stand in empathy with discernment. I love how Julie said that empathy without discernment is enabling. It's very true. Agree. 100%. We have to stand with the divine masculine, within us, Callie, within us, and say, okay, these are my boundaries. Almost in that very, everyday way. These are my boundaries. I'm not going to accept you treating me outside of these boundaries. And if you do, then we're going to have to figure out another way to coexist, because this isn't going to work. Even in that way, just doing those kinds of things for ourselves and loving ourselves enough in those ways can help this shift, because it is through our expansion, our mental and communicative expansion, that this shift happens.
Right. And that's what they attacked the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and they created a rift, they created a separation, and they've created so much discord between the two energies and so much confusion. So a lot of what we're going to see is like the repair of that. And Will I Am says Sol Oman, Sol Oman temple, Sol, sun, Mon equals moon, and the L, electricity that fuses them. The white wedding. Interesting. Yeah, so it's funny you bring up Solomon, because it goes back to King Solomon. This is where it began. There might have been something before him, but I have proof. There's published evidence, there's published documentation that King Solomon did some pretty gnarly spell work on the goddess, and he demonized the goddesses and called them, he literally changed their names, and he changed their titles from goddess to demon. So he probably did that with the divine masculine. I think that for the dark agenda to proceed in the way that it had to remove anyone or anything that would get in its way. Anyone that would set a boundary and say, this is not right, this is harmful, you need to stop. And they then infiltrated all of the systems that were already in place. There was already a justice system. There's already a medical system. There's already an education. Those systems were here all the way back to ancient Sumer. And they hijacked those systems, and they got into the positions of power through stealing occult magic, and then withholding and gatekeeping that magic from the masses. gaslighting the masses, teaching the masses magic isn't real. Because if you don't believe magic is real, how could you possibly be aware that dark magic or black magic is being done to make you forget who you are or to hold you back, right?
Or that all magic is evil, and condemning and burning them at the stake for doing even, healing, natural healing, midwives.
100%. Right.
I really think like you and Will should just have a conversation.
What's Will saying?
Will's awesome. He is so he's how did John describe? He said Will's a wordsmith, and I love that because I feel like I'm a wordsmith in the way of lyrics and poetry and things like that. And Will kind of dissects words and looks at I think he kind of looks at the etymology, but he also looks at like the way that words are spelt and how they're different meanings within the same kind of thing. I can't even explain it right. I'm sure he could explain it better. But I feel like with your knowledge of Solomon and the goddesses and what has happened and the downloads that you have received about breaking the spells and how we've been bound and how even in their graves they're bound in these graves, all that, I think you guys would have an amazing conversation, which I want to go ahead and say, Will, please join the Discord because I feel like if we could all get in there and have these conversations, we could all we could do a voice chat together where we're all in there together and having fun talking about it.
John Magic Dragon is asking, did you know the Red Sea splits twice a year? I did not know that. Red pill, blue pill, exactly. Together equals purple. Oh, took them both. You know what, Will? I love that you can own that, because if we've all taken both at one point, like I swallowed the New Age spirituality pill for sure. And I absolutely created a little bubble of delusion, 5D bliss. And, for a split second there was ignoring what actually needs attending. But then I came out of it. Sometimes we have to go through the programming to fully understand it.
I love that red. He said red root chakra to blue throat chakra equals a purple crown. That's so freaking cool. I love it.
Yeah. So Will, are you versed on King Solomon? Have you looked into the Solomonic magic? And I recently, I didn't realize I still had an Audible account that was charging me. I've actually been paying attention to my bank statements lately and really trying to budget. And I'm like, I don't even use Audible, but I'm paying $15 a month. And then my friend was like, make sure you get your credits. And I had 12 credits. And I downloaded a bunch of books about King Solomon, the talisman, all the binding circles and the Solomonic seals, and there's PDFs, and I, at some point want to teach a class and show people these sigils and these seals that he created to bind deities of power and the protectors.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah. The key is balance. That's absolutely true. Balance is easier achieved than maintained, but I'm trying. It's like, it's like a dance and I trance. I mean, I struggle. I go back and forth. And I have a journal entry from when I was 21 and I put a zigzag down the page. And on the left side, I wrote about my party animal side. And that's what I called it. I'm a party animal. And at the time I was living on a horse ranch, partying with actual cowboys that wrangled cattle for a living. A rootin' tootin' all the time. And I was drinking beer and smoking cigarettes and just totally in this chaos. But then I'd go for walks into nature and find a beautiful stream and sit and meditate and do yoga. And I just kept going back and forth between the two. And it's just finding that middle balance. And it can be hard. You sometimes going to swing on both sides of the pendulum for a bit.
For me, the balance is accepting the swing because, the ocean comes in and the ocean goes out is the ebb and flow. And some days are amazing and the sun is out and the whole day is perfect. And other days you just feel like crap and you don't want to talk to anybody and you don't want to do anything. And the key is accepting both for what they are and realizing that there is a place for both and a time for both and saying, this is okay now because this is what this moment is.
Absolutely. And Jet just joined us. Jet is in the house. What's up? Jet and I did a thing recently where I emailed her some of my art and she did her light codes over them. And I haven't really had a chance to sit and meditate with them, but I cannot wait. And Jet, I'll talk to you about maybe posting those because they really came out incredibly well. It's just the energy, the synergy. One of the reasons why co-creating is so powerful is because you're combining two energies, you're combining two waves of creativity, and then they elevate each other. Like that kundalini, like the DNA, that double helix that goes up.
And that creates more expansion when we work together in communication, even through art, through music, whatever way. One thing I want to say is I want to read Will's. He said, I don't believe we learn here. I think we remember. He put REM in capitals. Is that meaning like REM sleep? Draw a ton from upbringing. No more than I know. It's interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, Will, yes and no. I mean, I think there's constant learning, even if it's like remembering what we already knew. The learning is, how did we forget, right? The learning is what disconnected us from that knowledge. And the learning is how to recall it back and to understand what interfered with us. Why is there amnesia? Why did we forget? And that's learning. And a big part of this evolution and a big role that warriors are playing in this spiritual warfare is learning discernment, because that is what they played on. The dark agenda used spell work to erode that discernment. They've created so much confusion where humans either quickly believe false information and then they dig into that like it's the only truth and they start to repel the actual truth. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance, and there's just a ridiculous amount of deceit. This part of the hijacking has been done through layers and layers and layers of illusion and deceit. So part of the way out of this is to remember how to use discernment, remember how to come across information and use that inner pendulum of something doesn't feel right about this. And with the new age spirituality, the part that didn't feel right to me is this expectation of always being in a high vibration and not allowing yourself to acknowledge and process and discuss the lower vibrations, which is part of the human experience. Is part of why this realm was created, was to have a spectrum of high and low. That was one of the main objectives of having a 3D reality, was to be able to experience more than just the high vibrations. If there was no use of these low vibrations, then they just wouldn't have existed. They wouldn't have been brought into existence. They play a role. There is a purpose to them, and we need to learn how to feel them and work through them. And I'll give an example too. One of my friends has complicated grief. She's been through loss after loss after loss, and starting at the beginning of the pandemic and not having any time to truly process that grief, because it just keeps coming one thing after the other while you're in a state of constant chronic crisis and stress. So I started to help her dismantle her belief system around grief. And one of the things that was keeping her in suffering was this notion that in order to heal grief, you have to focus on what you're grateful for. And that was mind-blowing to me. Like, what does gratitude have anything to do with grieving loss? Yeah, it's great to focus on gratitude. I focus on what I'm grateful for daily. I think that's a good practice. But if people believe that in order to heal grief, you have to focus on it's almost torturous. It's like what you need is to be able to acknowledge the sadness. What you need to be able to do is just cry and allow yourself to feel all of those feelings and be held in a space of acceptance of that is okay. Yes. Not like, focus on what you're grateful for. And someone else just joined the live that I want to acknowledge. Lindsay. Hello, Lindsay, with your little fire. Lindsay is a fire warrior, and we have a Discord group. And so it is in Jessica's bio on her page. And I also included it in my Linktree, Jessica.
Good. Yay.
Proactive, and I put the Discord group in my Linktree also. So you can go to either one of our profile pages and the link to the Discord group is there. And we would love for you to join so we can have, off TikTok conversations and share experiences and tell stories.
Discord is weird, but it's awesome. It's kind of, I consider it kind of like a chat room mixed, like an old school chat room, like an AOL chat room, combined with like the old school board message boards in a way. So you can go and like look at all the different topics and go through the different topics, but then you can also scroll back through and see everybody's comments and messages from before. I did want to go back and touch on, what was it? That with learning. So, see, I feel like we do learn. I feel like we are capable of learning a new way of expressing and being in the world and in 3D reality and growing into 4D and 5 reality because, that expansion process of us communicating, of us growing and moving forward in life creates new things all the time. We're discovering new things. We're, creating new things, new music, new art, new words, new ways of speaking, new ways of communicating. And so those things, I think that learning is possible because if everything was already done that we were remembering, if it was already done, then I feel like that information would already be available to us. But I feel like there's still more things for us to learn, to expand into, to grow into.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's all learning, even mistakes are learning and fucking up is learning, doing the wrong thing is learning.
Yeah. And Julie said New Age turned me off with all the victim blaming. Yeah. And now, see, I was guilty of this, and we've had this conversation a little bit before, but I was guilty of saying, just to feel people who were in a moment of a hard moment and being like, well, maybe let's just try to rewrite your paradigm, rewrite how the story is going, actually physically write it out and change what the story is so that it's, something that you actually want it to be. But but when I got that kind of thing done to me, where I was in a really hard moment, I just kept getting colds over and over and different kinds of sicknesses and health things happening. I was told that I wasn't manifesting right. And it was just like, you're supposed to be my friend. Why are you doing that? You're not listening. You're not holding space for me. The way through pain, through darkness is through it. Going directly through it to the other side so that you can learn the lesson that it was providing for you. And sometimes that's hard, but when a seed is planted in the soil, it's dark. That germination happens in the dark.
Right. And the thing with the New Age philosophy of like, you're doing something wrong, therefore you're manifesting negative things. What that really does is that protects the elites. That actually helps the ones who are doing the most harm in society, because there's a shit ton of things done to us against our free will. And you see that with the government. You see that happening now. Look at the world is shouting ceasefire, and now 3 times the US has vetoed that. So to say that, something is in a negative state is like you're not doing something correctly, is you're enabling the narcissistic abusers to abuse us. That is a form of narcissistic abuse, because imagine like physically abusing a child and then saying you deserved that because it was something you did. It's like the same psychological, like someone's in suffering due to psychological conditioning, due to circumstances that have been infringed upon them against their free will. And they're simply acknowledging that this is hard, that this is a struggle. And to be like, yeah, you manifested that. It really gives the enemy and the perpetrators more room. It enables them to continue and proceed to do that, because we're redirecting and deflecting the blame, which is like, it's not necessarily our fault all the time. We sometimes do have things coming in towards us that are of a negative intent to harm. And that's not what we ask for. It's not what we wish for. It's not what we want to be manifesting. And it doesn't mean that we've done something wrong for that to happen.
Yeah, and how you said you have a problem with the Galactic Federation, one of the things I've had a problem with from the first time I ever heard of it was soul contracts.
Oh, yeah.
You're telling me that a child would choose to be, like that's...
So, again, that is assisting the dark agenda. Those paradigms, those belief systems are assisting the dark agenda from escaping and evading consequences, escaping and evading justice, and blaming the victim.
Right.
And
That's
right. and people that are considered spiritual are teaching this stuff out, and they have huge followings, and they're actually adding to the harm, and they're excusing the harm
Right.
by misplacing responsibility, like not holding the perpetrator accountable. And that's part of why this world has become so dark, is because the perpetrators, the most abusive ones out there harming humanity, are not properly held accountable. There's not enough of a consequence for them because they've created this rhetoric. They've created shit like New Age spirituality. Like, how convenient for them. Imagine how convenient for the elite that there's a bunch of people on TikTok that are considered spiritual that are like teaching the masses to turn a blind eye and don't look at the true source of the evil, and don't acknowledge or have discussions about what the evil is doing, because, you know, we can't acknowledge the low vibrations because it will put you into a low vibrational state. Like, New Age spirituality literally favors the government. The government must love it. They're like, they think it's something they did to manifest this discord and chaos, like, ha ha ha, as they're like sipping on their martinis at their elite, you know, restaurants. It's just, and the people preaching this stuff out, they think that they are the leaders of the new earth. They think that they are doing something to like lead humanity into this positive direction. But what they're doing is they're just gaslighting the masses further. They're really not assisting anyone by doing that at all.
I also feel like it also allows the people who are disseminating that information to sidestep actually helping people.
Right.
They don't have to have responsibility for helping them because you manifested it and it's your fault.
Well, and I saw someone, I think her name was Allie. She used to have a channel called Allie Starts a Cult. And when I first came across, it's something different now, but when I first came across her, I perceived her as like bashing New Age and making fun of it, kind of like a bully. And there were spiritual narcissists who were calling her a bully and going and attacking her content. And for a split second, I almost joined them in on that. But I took a step back. I used discernment, and I started to really listen to what she was saying. And I saw the truth in what she was saying, is that it is abusive. Like, you know, if the law of attraction is true, then New Age is telling the Palestinians that they've manifested this disaster.
Exactly. Thank you. Pablo says we're teaching doctrines of the devil.
100%, Pablo. Yes. Like, they don't even understand. So, you know, the Catholic Church and the Christian Church, this is what's happening. Is there was an article in the Boston Globe about the Catholic Church in Boston having a decline in membership for the first time in history, okay? The church is literally physically crumbling. There was a stone church in Connecticut that fell apart. It actually physically collapsed and physically crumbled, which I think is epic. Toodaloo, see you later, bye. Like, this is called karma. This is called the consequences catching up with all the dark sorcery. But the Catholic Church is like, oh shit, we're losing people. They're no longer buying into our programming. We're losing control. And the Freemasons are also losing control. And there was an article about Freemasons and the Vatican getting together to have dialogue. There's an actual news article about Freemasons and like the Catholic Church. Like, they're going to have a little powwow, you know, behind closed doors. And they're going to be like, how do we regain control over the masses? What else can we do to deceive and bamboozle people? Because, you know, people are catching on. They're seeing our fucking programming and it's not working anymore. Our dark sorcery is fading. So, oh, I know. Okay, we're going to repackage Christianity and call it New Age spirituality and try to get a whole new following. And now that's starting to backfire too, because people like us are waking up and seeing that truth. So they're in a scramble, and you can see them really trying to figure out how they can gain control of the masses again. The Vatican runs Black Sun agenda. The Vatican it's one of like the main hubs, the main demon hub, a nest. It's a giant nest. We are the Christ. We got to be the heroes because ain't nobody coming. So that's it. We have to activate within us. And that, you know, thank you, Julie, for saying that, because that's what this is about. If you're here listening, what Jessica and I want to be able to help assist with is teaching people how to step into their power, teaching people how to alchemize and transmute the anger, the rage, the fury, the injustice, the inequality, all those lower feelings, and alchemize it and transmute it into power and counter the darkness with that power. You know, ball it up into some fire and throw it right back at the enemy and say, no, thank you. You shall not infringe on my free will. I am sovereign. And we need to break free from this. And it starts with breaking free psychologically, because they went from holding us down with physical chains to then mental and psychological chains. And so breaking chains on all levels to step into our power and reclaim our power.
It's so beautiful when we get to see confirmation that this is happening even outside of our sphere of influence. Because, you know, Jet had said a minute ago, the Mormon women are leaving in the hundreds of thousands, leaving the Mormon faith. And just those things, those little confirmations are just like, yeah. We don't even need to speak to every person, you know. We're just this little crew. We can be our little crew and affect so much change. And for me, you know, that last one we had was so powerful. The last live we had was just so freaking powerful. And then the next day, Bisan called for a march for the 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th. And have you guys seen any content on that? Like, it has been hidden hardcore.
No, they are definitely suppressing a lot.
Yes.
Julie just said something really important though about, hold on, where'd it go? We need to strike back by way of labor and tax strikes. And that is, you're absolutely right. Like, the tax strike would be the best way to hit them hard. The problem is that, you know, the entrapment of, if I don't pay my taxes, then they put levies and liens on your accounts, on your property, and there's threat of going to jail. And so, you know, like, we have to get to a point where there's enough people willing to step into that fearlessly and say, all right, then so be it, you know? And I just don't think the collective is there quite yet, Julie, but I do think we're like, you know, we have to just keep doing the work behind the scenes and the ethers and the astral, and keep like slaying and cutting through those binds and cutting through that fear, and putting that intention out that if enough people come together and do that, then